top 5 Super Bowl winning team formulas. Psycho Schematics! With the New England Patriots winning Super Bowl 53, we can now begin to look back on the history of the other 52 winners and begin to really compare and contrast with the current state of the National Football League and start to make determinations about the evolution of the league-wide coaching and play calling trends, as well as make educated observations about the team concepts, roster construction, and evolution of roster science that the NFL has experienced through those years. Through keen observation, you'll begin to notice some patterns about the most consistent Super Bowl winning formulas that can still be effective even in the modern era of NFL level football. There are numerous team formulas that can still be effective for modern football rules and playing styles. However, in this video, I'll be providing my opinion on which formulas are the best team formulas to use for an NFL organization. Now, I have a feeling that some of my selections might be considered somewhat controversial. So if you disagree with anything about my list, step up to the plate and dish out your arguments. And if you do argue, you better have your facts ready with some evidence to support your position. The ordering of my list is very specific and is based on level of difficulty to execute the style and concept of the team, consistency of winning, sustainability of formula of the team, ability for other general managers and NFL executives and coaching staffs to replicate these formulas, amount of time needed to build a roster to be able to execute the formula. I'm using this criteria in order to set a little different standard, an objective standard for how NFL general managers, executives, and how coaching staffs could consistently build a team that could win from scratch. Now, keep in mind, with certain teams, they don't have the same roster, they don't have the same skill set, they don't have the same logic and thought processing and concepts as other GMs and executives and teams. So this is why I made this criteria, because when you really think about it, it's all about the position you're in order to get certain talent, the amount of money that's available in free agency for you to be able to actually conceive and build the roster that you're trying to build, the amount of time that is going to take, because if you really think about it, not every coach has the job security to really meander around and try to build a roster from scratch and really take the time to fortify a solid roster in time to be able to make a overall good team. So I had to weight certain criterias over the other in order to really say, at least in my opinion, which roster formula is the absolute best in order to win championships in the current model of the National Football League. To start off my video comparison, I have the overall balanced team with good special teams for my 5th best team formula. When I think of a very good overall balanced team, I'd expect the team to possess either an elite quarterback or a young rising star quarterback, an above average to good offensive line, 2 to 3 decent running backs or 1 elite running back, at least 1 high level or elite receiver, and at least 1 high level or elite pass rusher with a decent supporting cast of above average pass rushers supporting them, good linebackers, and a good secondary, along with a great punter, excellent kick returner, excellent punt returner. Now, good overall teams are a great luxury to have in any sport. And when an organization realizes that they have an excellent overall team with their current roster, They need to find a way to win a Super Bowl as soon as possible. And I think the 1996 Green Bay Packers fit this model that I'm trying to describe pretty well. They had Desmond Howard, that excellent special teams returner. They had Brett Favre, who was clearly a rising star and elite quarterback of this particular point. They had Reggie White, elite pass rusher, one of the best defensive ends to ever play the game. And they had a lot of surrounding talent around this team. It was just a solid overall team. There really wasn't many weaknesses with that roster. So, yeah, I think 1996 Green Bay Packers fits this model perfectly. However, this model of the good overall team is fifth on my list because it'll be very difficult to sustain this type of roster. In the modern day, NFL players have put a higher emphasis on free agency, so it'll be near impossible to keep a team this stacked because they're going to be going for lucrative contracts in free agency. Also, this type of roster would be difficult to create in the first place. The GM would probably have to draft well on 4 out of the 7 rounds of selections for the next 2 to 3 years, and making the correct acquisitions in free agency consistently for the past 2 to 3 years to be able to execute this type of roster style perfectly. At 4th, I have elite offensive line and elite defensive line as my 4th best team formula. In football, there's a saying, win the trenches and you'll win the game. Well, that saying's pretty damn accurate if you ask me. Possessing a dominant, elite offensive and defensive line will give any team a chance to completely control the game in terms of pass protection, running the ball effectively, controlling time of possession, run stopping, pass rushing, and pressuring quarterback without even blitzing. Controlling the trenches will give any team a huge advantage in a football game, period, on any level. And I think the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles is a perfect example of a team that won with this formula. They had a top 3 offensive line and the best defensive line in the league the year they won. Now, people would argue the Jaguars had the best defensive line, but I think the Eagles had a more solid rotation. Now, the reason that I think this is the 4th best is that this roster formula would possibly leave other parts and other positions with the team with less cap room to be able to acquire talent towards those other positions. So ultimately, I still think that this roster strategy is an excellent strategy to win, and it's 4th for a reason. However, it's really important that the team still understands that they have to build around their offensive line and defensive line. You still need at least an average quarterback, at least a decent quarterback. At 3rd, I have explosive offense and aggressive turnover forcing defense. Now, this team model is by far my favorite team formula and is proven to be a very successful and entertaining formula to watch in action. Teams that have used this formula have built an aggressive vertical passing style of attack while being able to create explosive plays down the field and pressuring the defense to move back into cover 3, deep coverage, and then hit passes underneath and still get big plays as a result of them backing off because of their big play capability. And on defense, they're known for pressuring, attacking with aggressive blitzing style tactics that force the offense that they're going against into bad situations and force turnovers. The teams that have used this formula have been very successful at scoring a lot of points and burying teams with an absolute onslaught of turnover forcing and scoring points off of the turnovers and making big plays in transition. I think the 2009 Saints and the 2010 Green Bay Packers fit this description perfectly. If executed correctly, teams with this formula of playing style and team concept tend to run up the score quickly and obliterate teams if they don't figure out how to attack their confusing defensive blitz tactics and handle their aggressive offensive onslaught. I listed this team formula at third because teams that execute this formula correctly still tend to have an elite or a young rising star quarterback, a fast, explosive, athletic wide receivers and tight ends that can compete for the pass and jump up to the apex of their jump and outcompete defenders for the ball in order to make big completions. Smart, savvy, aggressive, ball-hawking secondary that has a knack for forcing turnovers, and at least one high-graded to elite level pass rusher. So the reason I have this at third and not higher, even though it is my favorite team formula, is because it can be difficult to replicate this formula. Because you have to understand, even though you have a vision for what you want your team to be able to accomplish and execute on the field, doesn't mean that you have draft and free agent talent that will be able to actually execute your vision perfectly. So the reason, like I said, that it's at third is because even though it's very interesting, very entertaining, and a very successful strategy in the past, it's proven to be, it may not be very simple to execute. Now also, when you think about it, it still takes, like I said, a young rising star quarterback and elite quarterback, not to mention a quarterback that has a strong arm. At number 2, I have the most well-known winning formula in the NFL's history: a great coach and a great quarterback combination. Now, before y'all start to call my list trash, say, oh, well, this should be number 1. Don't worry, I have my argument ready, so just calm down. Overall, this formula has been the most consistent in terms of winning Super Bowls and maintaining success for the team. Examples for this formula would be 1970s Steelers, the 1970s Cowboys, 1980 49ers, and the current millennium's New England Patriots. Now, I have the great coach quarterback combo at second because of the difficulty to replicate this formula, because many general managers and NFL executives have tried to find the next great coach and have tried to draft or sign the next great quarterback and have failed. So remember, the reason I created this criteria is because I wanted to weight certain factors over the other. And one of the biggest factors to my criteria in this particular list is ability to consistently replicate the team model and the team structure that I have in this list. And because of the reality that many general managers and executives and coaches have tried to follow this model of the great coach, great quarterback combo, makes me really sit back and think, is this actually the greatest team formula ever? And after further consideration, I don't think so. And for the best Super Bowl winning formula of all time. I have elite defense and efficient offense. Yes, that's right. I think elite defense and efficient offense is definitely the best Super Bowl winning formula ever implemented. Why? Because number one, it's been proven to be one of the most consistent team formulas in the entire NFL throughout the history of the league. Even in modern NFL era, we've still seen some dominant defensive teams with decent, average to above average offense that have made it all the way to the Super Bowl and have won, even against the elite offensive teams that we've seen in the history of the game. Examples of teams that have won with this winning formula is 70s Dolphins, 70s Steelers, 2000 Ravens, the 2001 New England Patriots, the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2005 Steelers, 2008 Steelers, 2013 Seahawks, 2015 Broncos. Now, the reason I think this is the best Super Bowl formula is that, in my opinion, it's the easiest formula to be able to replicate, and it is proven to have great potential to consistently win in the National Football League. Like I already said, even with the rule changes that make it more difficult to play defense, defense has proven to be the ultimate equalizer, and with at least a mildly effective and efficient offense, they're able to win close games, keep the game low scoring, but have the psychological edge, the physical edge, and ultimately find ways to make clutch plays, whether it's on offense or defense, to get them in scoring position and to win games for their team. Like they say, in the National Football League, defense wins championships. And what's really ironic about that is, even like I keep bringing up, even with these rule changes, even with the way the league is changing to a finesse league, we saw in Super Bowl 53 two teams that had decent offensive potential. The Rams had elite offensive potential. The game was won 13-3, and a legendary defensive coach, Bill Belichick, ended up dominating one of the young offensive genius minds in the league today, Sean McVay. So once again, this is just proving itself to be true over and over and over again. Defense wins championships. Defense, or elite defense with efficient offense, or at least efficient offense and dominant running game with efficient passing, that will win you championships. And the really interesting thing is, you don't need an elite quarterback in order to win with this strategy. You don't need a top-notch offensive line. You don't need overloaded talent in order to win with this structure. And that's why it's also number one in my opinion. Because it doesn't need to be balanced. It doesn't need to be a stacked team in numerous areas. And another thing to keep in mind is the reason defense wins championships in the NFL is because the defense in the NFL has the opportunity to force turnovers and either score defensive touchdowns or put their offense into position to score. Like what you're seeing in this video. They just recovered a fumble right at the goal line. And this will conclude the video. Did you like it? Did you agree with the list? If you don't agree with the list, comment below. If you did agree with the list, give me a psycho schematics. Get in the game. If you like this video, like and subscribe to the channel. I got plenty more information on the way.